Hi, and welcome back to ENTP Life. In today's video, we're going to be talking about something a little different because it's really me just kind of ranting on something that I saw today on Instagram. Now, obviously, this is a channel where we're talking about real estate, we're talking about growing your wealth and business practices, and overall just putting yourself in a better financial position amongst whatever else I decide to talk about here. And if you're not already a subscriber, please, before we get into it, just take that time out, hit that subscription button, and that way you can get alerted to whenever we're putting out new content. As I said before, we usually talk about real estate here, but today we're just talking about the public's perception of big business and the tendency to want to tax the wealthy or want to tax big business, or like this anti-corporate mentality, okay? Now, before I get started, just let me know what your position is in the comment section below on taxing the wealthy or taxing corporations. Because today I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw a post that was referencing a tax increase that's supposed to take effect that's targeting global tech companies like Facebook, Google, and Amazon. And I was really shocked to see what people were saying in response to this tax that was targeting these large corporations, right? These were comments that were mostly in favor of imposing a tax on these big businesses, right? Obviously, I'm not going to put that in quotation marks because Facebook, Google, and Amazon are massive, but it just seemed a little strange to me what the response was. So before we even dive into it, just let me know in the comment section below what you think about taxing the wealthy, what you think about taxing corporations, and why. And why is that your position? Because I'm really confused as to how people who are following like entrepreneurial or wealth building social media channels would also be pro, taxation, and that was kind of an ironic, I guess, thing for me to see. All right, so let me get into exactly what the post was and explain to you why I'm kind of disturbed by this. So, where's this post? Okay. So the post is from Earn Your Leisure. They're a podcast that really focuses on business and just being an entrepreneur. So they posted, the world could learn a thing or two from France's plan to tax Amazon, Facebook, and Google. France passed a new law that requires tech firms with global revenue of more than 750 million euros to pay a 3% tax on French sales. Okay? It goes on to say that this is kind of an unusual practice because it's kind of a top line number for their global revenue, not just their revenue within the country. And they went on to ask, so what is your opinion on this to their followers? And the first comment got me going, and I went on to a multi-comment rant. But the first comment says, people complain all the time about people getting $800 to $900 a month in welfare, but overlook the billions that should be paid by corporations that know how to find all the loopholes. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. There's somebody here who's advocating for this tax and arguing that the reason that, the focus shouldn't be on people who are getting government subsidies, but it should be on the corporations paying, an increased amount to kind of compensate for the injustice or inequality in the world. And the thing is, it's like, why are you comparing people who are receiving government dollars to people who are, generating government dollars, right? Like, you can't deny that a corporation isn't a huge, supporter of government, really. The corporations are creating jobs for the public, right? So they're not collecting government subsidies. They're helping to develop infrastructure, right? Sometimes they're building ports, sometimes they're building warehouses, sometimes they're building distribution channels, railroad stations, things that are missing. Sometimes they're actually going into regions that were dilapidated, like, I don't know, like the Baltimore shipping yards, and revitalizing those communities by bringing warehousing where there was some warehouse infrastructure or some port or exchange infrastructure that has fallen, behind, that's not generating city revenue, that's not generating anything, right? So what it really signaled to me is that there's a real disconnect between business owners who are actually business owners, like that are generating, multi-million-dollar to billion-dollar revenue, that have, more than 50 employees. There's a disconnect between the business owners and those that are running the business, and really the general public, who I guess fall into, I don't want to sound crass, but that fall into middle class. There really is a disconnect because they're not seeing the real impact of their company, or they're not seeing the real impact of corporations and how much the corporation is doing that is pro-community or pro the objectives of a government. Now let's look at just tax revenue, right? There was a year that, it was that I remember seeing like this flyer that Verizon paid $4 million. Verizon earned $4 billion in profit and had an effective tax rate of 0% that year. And they also laid off 10,000 employees in the same year. And there was this, pushback that Verizon is horrible, et cetera. And I remember at that time, that might have been around like 2009, 2010, Occupy Wall Street movement was pretty strong. And I remember thinking, well, this is a little bit of a one-sided article or one-sided posting because it's not really accurate with what's happened, right? And what I mean by that is Verizon definitely didn't pay zero in taxes, right? Because Verizon employs hundreds of thousands of people, right? They employ directly, they employ contractors, they obviously own plenty of real estate, they have to purchase multiple supplies. So you don't think that employing people generates a tax, right? Like, as an employer who's paying payroll to their employees, you're paying at least the federal contributions, the Medicare contributions. If your state taxes, you're paying a portion of state taxes. You're paying at least 10% to 11% in payroll taxes as the employer. And there's a lot of employees who don't know that, who don't know, even on a small business, it's a 3-person company, they don't know that the boss is paying an extra 10% or 11% on top of your wages as his tax to employ you. They don't know this, and it's really disturbing. And they have the nerve to complain that they're not paying enough taxes, right? So what is one of the biggest expenses for a corporation? It's their human capital, it's their employees. And they're paying them all wages, and they're paying employer taxes on them. Not to mention that these people are working for the company and paying payroll taxes themselves. And obviously the general public doesn't like their payroll taxes, right? That's why they file their tax returns hoping to get a refund. They want that money back. So how is it that you can want your money back, but for the corporation, because they made $1 billion that year, they should pay more taxes? That doesn't make sense to me, because they have the same emotions, the same mindset as everybody else. It's like, why do I have to pay this huge bill? Especially when I'm already paying above average taxes. Taxes for things that people don't know I'm paying taxes for, right? Think about your business phone services, business internet. I pay more for my business internet than I do for my home internet. And when I ask the cable company or when I ask Verizon, hey man, why is my home service only $49 a month, but my business service is $300 a month? Their response is, oh man, well, at home you're not using those services to make money. In your company, you're making money. You're using our service for your commercial activity, so we charge you more. And since we're charging you more, We're going to also, all those additional taxes, the state taxes, the infrastructure taxes that you're paying are going to be also higher, right? What about the taxes that I'm paying on all my goods? What about the taxes that I pay on all my services, right? And like I said, what about the infrastructure improvements that I'm making in the community? How do all these things get ignored, and how is it that people don't know this and are just seeing the headline and saying, oh my God, these companies are so rich, and they're complaining about 3%? Like 3% of $1 billion is $30 million. You wouldn't want to give that up. No way. If you were making $1 billion a year, you wouldn't want to pay an extra $30 million. You wouldn't. You'd be like, no, you know what? I'd rather open up a school. I'd rather take this money and do something with it that I really believe is going to improve the community, right? And the list goes on into the complaints that were coming up on this feed, and it really, really bothers me. It really bothers me that there's this gap in financial literacy in our country, and that there's this gap in mentality between the wealthy and the middle class, and of course the poor. They each have a completely different perspective on taxation, on government influence, and really how things are done. I started in business at a very young age, right? So I learned these things like through trial and error early on. I remember when I ran my very first payroll in the staffing firm that me and my mom started. And I remember talking to the ADP representative and knowing that, all right, payroll, I don't remember how much it was. It might have been like $2,000 or $3,000 for the week. And when I received like the withdrawal, like the debit for payroll, it was the $3,000 for the week, plus of course the payroll processing fees. And then there was like another, like $900. And I was like, what the hell is this $900? I call up ADP. It's like, I think you overcharged me for the payroll, because payroll is only $3,000. Why is it costing me $4,100 and whatever dollars? And they're like, oh no, sir. I'm 14. Oh no, sir. There's employers' payroll taxes. When your statement arrives, take a look at it. It's gonna break everything down. And I was like, holy crap. You have to pay taxes to hire somebody? And I was like, damn, that sucks. And that was a lesson that I got at 14 years old. So for me, when I see these like headlines of they paid zero taxes, et cetera, and for me being in the founder and CEO of a company that has over 400 employees, I know how much money comes in, how much money goes out in payroll, how much of the payroll is a separate deduction for taxes every single pay period. And then at the end of the year on my net profit, I have to, or my gross profit or my net profit before depreciation and taxation, I have to then pay taxes on that again. And then when I make a distribution to myself as a shareholder and to my other shareholders, we have to now pay taxes again on that distribution as ordinary income. Like, when is enough enough? At what point is it enough taxes? And that's why when you see the wealthy kind of really pushing and petitioning for tax cuts, and you're like, oh my God, that seems so greedy. If you look at what the wealthy is paying in taxes as a volume of tax contributions versus what the general public is paying, we're both getting taxed, obscenely. But you start to look at these big numbers and you go, holy crap, man! Like, if I could recapture just 10% of my tax, of the taxes that I generate as a company, I'd be happy. Like, is there a way for me to do that? No different than someone who's looking at their paycheck, and seeing all the deductions, saying, man, how can I deal with this? Oh, guess, your financial advisor or your accountant tells you, yeah, you know what, you should probably be contributing to your 401k so that you're getting that tax deferment. And you should probably be purchasing a house when the mortgage deductions were really good, because that's going to offset things, because you can't claim your rent. If you were an owner, you're going to actually be able to take home some more of your money, etc. But that's okay, right? But for somehow, some way, there's this disconnect between the corporation and the general public that is unjust and unfounded. And that's really all I have to say about that. It's just like, really, if you don't understand the, I guess, behind the scenes of large businesses, of 100, 200, 300, 400,000 employee operations, and you look at the owner, or you look at the CEO, or you look at that entity as this kind of monstrous figure that's only out there creating money, take a step back and think about all the good that we're doing, right? We're beautifying neighborhoods, we're creating jobs, we're oftentimes, changing the culture of an area. We're creating scholarship funds, we're doing fundraisers, we're teaching our employees how to be better with their money. There's a lot of things that are happening on a corporate level that gets overlooked, and I don't know how and why this propaganda machine still exists that the corporation is the enemy, the corporation's bad. Like we're here in New York City, right? We got the bid for Amazon to put their East Coast headquarters in New York City, right? In Queens, where my company is. And there was this huge pushback that, oh my God, Amazon is getting tax breaks? Amazon is getting millions and millions of dollars of tax breaks? It's like, yes, dude, because look at what they're bringing to the city, right? They're going to change the economy of the city in a way that is going to allow even the entry-level entrepreneurs to benefit. They're going to allow the small business, the guy who has the halal stand, the wasteland that's east or north of the Queensboro Bridge that hasn't been developed, that they've been looking to redevelop for years. Maybe that's going to get built out into something. It's going to get built out into warehouse space, which is going to be occupied by some people. And it's like, how don't you see that there's this positive impact that is good? Going back to Verizon helped to build a lot of the telecom infrastructure, going fiber in a lot of neighborhoods. I remember when Verizon and Time Warner Cable were competing in Manhattan. If I was getting fiber services from Time Warner Cable, they were using Verizon's infrastructure because Verizon made the investments to run the fiber lines. And it's like, well, how did you think, what did you think was going on, right? You don't think that serves the government in some way so that they're not paying their inefficient government workers to lay fiber at astronomical rates, while the private sector is obviously being economical and efficient about how they approach laying the same fiber, that the government doesn't say, you know what, thank you for doing our work, here's a tax credit. Like, duh, this is how it works, man. And that's all that I want to talk about. I'm sorry that I'm going off this way, but I personally feel under attack when I see the general public looking at the wealthy, or looking at business owners, like real business owners that have a lot of employees, looking at them as if they're food, as if they're the person to go and rob, more or less rob. Oh, he has the money, I'm going to pass a law to take it. To me, that's effed up. That you might as well just hit me over the head and pull my wallet out of my pocket. It's the same thing. And this happens too often to a very small group of people, and somehow it's not considered unfair. I understand that corporations can do a lot to improve social imbalance, and I do think it's a responsibility of every company to really address
some of the social injustices within their community or some of the social injustices that they're passionate about. And they should be making it a priority in their company to highlight those things. But to just outright say, regardless of what you're doing as a company, I think you need to pay because I have this deficit in my country because I don't know how to manage the money as a country. I'm going to start going into the pockets of global companies to try to generate revenue. That's your strategy. That's as good as you could get. That means that's why you suck, right? If your strategy is I'm only going to raise my fees without providing improved quality of services or an improved product, I'm just going to raise the fee. What do you think is going to happen? You're going to have a disgruntled customer that's going to be like, yeah, you know what? I mean, I want to do business in your country. Or, you know what? I'm just going to pass it on to your citizens, and they're going to just be disgusted with you as a government because you just caused their expenses to go up. And that's the game that you play. And there's really a big difference in the mindset of the private sector versus the public. And I think it's time for the public sector to wake up and really start looking at big business and emulating big business models to improve their systems. Because I'm sorry to break it to you, but the public sector has a lot of improvement to do. Look at public schools compared to private schools. Look at the Postal Service, the U.S. Postal Service, compared to FedEx and UPS. Just look at their sites. Go to the post office and tell me what you think about how the post office looks. Just go to the post office. Look at the uniforms. Look at the body language of the people, and compare it to your FedEx guy, or compare it to a UPS guy or a DHL guy. Just look at the box. Look at a FedEx box compared to a U.S. Postal Service box. It's got paint on it from 1977. People throwing trash in there. It's just like, come on, man. You got to as a government agency or as a government, you guys have to do better than just slapping taxes on big business. Seriously. All right. So anyway, that's enough of that. Thank you for just listening to me vent. And once again, if you made it to this point, please just leave your comments. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I'd love to understand your perspective. So please go ahead and do that in the comment section below. If you haven't already hit that like button, please slap a like on the like button, whether it's down here or here, depending on your device. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Once again, thank you for joining me here at ENTP Life. Hope you enjoyed. Take care.